All right. What is up, everybody in the paint? Altitude Sports Radio 92.5, our digital post-game Nuggets show. Wow. What an awesome game this was tonight in Minnesota. Now, obviously didn't end the way that we were all hoping for, but there's so much to get into, not only with the game tonight, but there was a pretty big article that Ramona Shelburne of ESPN wrote today. So I want to go over the game first, and then I want to get into some of the big things I took out of the article written by ESPN's Ramona Shelburne today. There was a lot of really interesting stuff in there about the Nuggets. So, and really the article that was written, a lot of it kind of you could see come to fruition tonight, not really throughout the season. So anyways, welcome into the show. You can find this on twitch.tv/altitudesr, our Altitude SR Twitter page, our Altitude Sports Radio YouTube channel. It'll all be streaming live there. So please feel free to send me your thoughts on tonight's game. If you happen to read the article written on ESPN today about the Nuggets, sort of a rift going on between Mike Malone and the front office, and just a lot of uncertainty to start the season. But let's get into the game first, because this was really just an outstanding basketball game. And I tweeted this out during the game at DanTanner091 is my Twitter handle. It seems to me like, I mean, the Timberwolves are officially the Nuggets rival now, right? Like, it was the Lakers there for a couple of years. They played them in the Western Conference Final. It was the Who's Your Daddy chants at the parade and in the arena. And then they beat them in the first round of the playoffs last year. But like at this point, the Lakers just aren't good enough to be the Nuggets rival. And they're boring. So to me, this is probably the best rivalry going on in the NBA right now. And really you saw that kind of come to a boiling point tonight when Christian Braun in the fourth quarter just dunked all over Rudy Gobert's face. Now CB kind of stepped up to Rudy after that. And then Rudy kind of grabs CB around the neck. They get offsetting technicals, whatever. But Russell Westbrook was like the first one in there to defend his guy. And look, last post-game show, I told everybody, like, Russell Westbrook is going to have games where you're really excited about him and happy with his performance, and then he's going to have games that just drive you crazy. And he had a really good game against the Brooklyn Nets the other night, a couple of nights ago on Tuesday, where he had 22 points off the bench. And I said, Russell Westbrook is going to have these types of games at various points throughout the year, and then he's also going to have games where he just makes you want to pull your hair out. And that's kind of the game we got tonight from Russ. I mean, he was 1 of 8 shooting from the field, 0 of 3 from beyond the arc. He went past my 2 3-pointer limit. If you watch or listen to the show, you know I have a cap of a maximum of 2 3-point attempts for Russell Westbrook every single game. And honestly, I think that's even a little high. But he was 0 of 3 from beyond the arc, finished with 5 points, was a minus 13. So I want to start with the biggest issue that the Nuggets clearly have right now. It's the bench. That is by far the biggest issue on the team. And again, it's 5 games in. You've got Dario Saric, Russell Westbrook, big offseason acquisitions to try and help the bench because Christian Braun inserted in the starting lineup. We're going to get into Christian Braun here in a bit too, because I think he's been phenomenal to start the season. In fact, he's been way better than I had even hoped he would be, filling in the void of KCP going to the Orlando Magic. But the bench, there's no other way to sugarcoat this. The bench was absolutely putrid tonight. I mean, they were like really, really bad. I also tweeted this out earlier in the game. This was at some point in, like, I think early fourth quarter. At about, like, I don't know, just a few minutes into the fourth quarter, the Nuggets bench was shooting 3 of 21 from the field. The starters at that point were shooting 32 of 56. So the starters are playing phenomenal basketball. In fact, they have the best starting five in the NBA. But here's the problem. You cannot play the starters as big a minutes as Coach Malone has been playing them this year. And again, like I've said, I don't put that blame on Michael Malone. Joker plays 40 minutes again tonight. I mean, you want Joker around like 32, 33 minutes a game a night in the regular season, maybe in like the big time games, 35. But the fact that, and I get the last two games before this were overtime games, so it kind of inflates those numbers just a little bit. But these guys are playing way too many minutes. I mean, Aaron Gordon, 38, MPJ, 39, Joker played 40, CB, 36, and Jamal played 22 because he went out in the third quarter with a concussion. After coming around a screen, he gets popped by Julius Randle, and he was out for the rest of the game, and it looks like he's probably not going to play tomorrow night back here in Denver against the Utah Jazz. So that's a bummer for Denver, obviously, especially with how thin they are depth-wise right now. But the bench, man, like, I'm willing to give it some time. I really am. My rule is by Thanksgiving, I really wait to reserve judgment before I start to really evaluate like who this year's Nuggets team is. But I didn't envision the bench being this bad, and they have been absolutely dreadful. I mean, like I said earlier, Russell Westbrook, 1 of 8. Julian Strawther, 1 for 4 shooting. Peyton Watson, what in the world happened to that guy? 1 of 6 shooting. Hunter Tyson got into the game tonight, and honestly, I loved seeing it. I mean, he only played 6 minutes, but he was 1 of 1 shooting. I like how hard Hunter Tyson plays the game. And Dario Saric, again, was just non-existent. I mean, he played 5 minutes tonight. 0 of 3 from the field, 0 of 2 from beyond the arc. He had 2 rebounds, and that's it. He had 2 offensive rebounds. Those were his only stats in this game, were 2 offensive rebounds. Man, if I'm Michael Malone, I would seriously consider giving Hunter Tyson a serious look here over Peyton Watson, because right now it's just simply not working for the Nuggets. And also, they staggered MPJ with the second unit again tonight. They've kind of gone back and forth between staggering Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr. with that second unit. Neither one's working. So I'm almost at the point where it's like, just play the bench as the bench and let the starting 5 get as much rest as possible. Because and you might be saying, well, they need the help. I get it, but it's not working. So I would be really surprised if Michael Malone doesn't at least start to tinker with the bench unit like we saw tonight with Hunter Tyson coming in. And, obviously Jamal Murray being out, I'm sure had a little bit to do with that. Who knows if Hunter Tyson gets in the game tonight, if Jamal Murray doesn't go out of the game. But yeah, because look, the starting 5 is fantastic. The Nuggets still have the best starting 5 in the NBA. I mean, Christian Braun has been everything and more that I could have hoped for, at least early in the season. He's been absolutely phenomenal. So we'll see what Coach Malone decides to do, but man, they've got to figure something out. And I will say, by around Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas, if you want to give them a little extra time, if the bench doesn't markedly improve, Calvin Booth has got to be on the phone and looking to improve the second unit. And I don't care how they have to do it. It'll depend on how the season plays out to that point. But I will just say, in a hypothetical world, if it continues to look like this, I mean, let me ask you listening, everybody out there listening, if you were to give up a starter, obviously not Nikola Jokic, but let me just put it as if the Nuggets were going to give up a starter to get 2 really good bench players, 2 really good depth players, Is that something that the Nuggets should consider? And I would say yes, because for me, I love the Nuggets starting five. I do. But if you're playing with Nikola Jokic, you don't need to have like a bunch of really, really good players around him. You need to have decent players for the most part. But there's no way this team is going to win a championship this year if they don't have any depth whatsoever. And I get the bench guys don't play a whole lot in the playoffs, but look at what happened last year. This team was exhausted by the end of the season. In fact, in the article written on ESPN today, one of the quotes in here from Ramona Shelburne was, by the time Denver got to the end of last season, Jamal Murray was basically on one leg, as one team source put it. Aaron Golden had a shoulder issue. Nikola Jokic's wrist was killing him, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had hamstring issues. Well, a lot of that, in my opinion, had to do with the fact that this team was run into the ground. But again, I don't blame Michael Malone for that. What is he supposed to do? Just play the starters 30 minutes a night and hope that your bench one of those nights doesn't get you down 15, 20 points when Joker and the starters are on the floor? I mean, he's not going to do that, and I don't blame him. So, man, I will say it's still very, very early. But if it continues to look like this, like we saw tonight, where the starters are playing amazing basketball and the Nuggets are still losing games, if I'm Calvin Booth, I'm seriously considering moving off one of those guys to bring in a couple of depth pieces. Simple as that. So let's see here. Our guy Daniel Miller, MPJ and Russ plus for Naz Reid and McDaniels. Yeah, I don't think Minnesota makes that trade. I don't think they would make that trade. But Jaden Daniels and Naz Reid are fantastic players. And I mean, they're starters for, well, Naz Reid's not, but Jaden Daniels is. McDaniels, excuse me. Yeah, like I get it, but you know, it's got to be just, it doesn't have to be like two really, really, really good players. Just two guys that you know you can rely on night in and night out that to play good defense, doesn't have to be great defense, and can score the basketball. It's really as simple as that. Let's see here. Sorry if you talked about this. I'll put this on the screen here. Sorry if you talked about this. I still think we need to bring in another Bruce Brown style player for the bench. That spot has not been filled in the season. Oh yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. I mean, the Bruce Brown loss was obviously huge, and we saw that factor in last year. And I really don't think people, I shouldn't say that. People understood how valuable he was to this team, myself included. I just didn't realize like just how valuable he was to this team, just as far as like even in the regular season, playing well in the regular season, so you don't have to just run the starters 40 plus minutes every night. So, you know, that's something that, again, we've talked about is something this team is desperately needing. So again, in my view, it's like, okay, let's give this at least 15 to 20 games before we really start to like seriously talk about that. But like I said, if it continues this way where you're just getting absolutely nothing from your bench unit, except for maybe once a week Russell Westbrook goes off, the Nuggets are going to have to seriously consider making major changes. And I'm talking like a starter for a couple of depth pieces. Let's see here. Polymorph. He got better, but Russ was so bad in the first half. Yeah, he wasn't good offensively the whole game, I thought. Defensively, I thought he was fine. I actually thought Jamal Murray, before he got hurt, was doing an okay job on Anthony Edwards for the most part. I mean, that guy is just unbelievably good. It's got to be one of the biggest challenges in the league covering that guy. But the problem with Russ is like he can play really great defense, and that's fine. But he's got to be able to score the basketball a little bit. I mean, 1 of 8 shooting tonight. You simply cannot have that. Let's see. Andon says bench needs some serious talent and a solid vet. Yep. That's kind of where I'm going with this. I mean, it's so obvious what the Nuggets issue is right now, and it's glaring. It's not like it's a minor fix. No, this, man, if it looks like this throughout the season, it's not a minor thing that, you just tweak. This might be a major overhaul coming for this team. So, okay. I did want to get into a few points. By the way, Aaron Gordon, just real quick before we get into the article that Ramona Shelburne wrote on ESPN today, Aaron Gordon was phenomenal tonight. Like 5 of 7 from beyond the arc is crazy for AG. And MPJ was really good tonight too, actually. This was by easily his best game of the young season. Him and AG both shot 11 of 18 from the field, which is fantastic. AG was 5 of 7 from 3. MPJ was 3 of 7 from 3. 26 points for MPJ, 31 from Aaron Gordon. You take that all game long from those two. So Nikola Jokic, I thought, was fantastic again tonight. Didn't really like him passing up the 3 ball there at the end for Christian Braun, but I'm talking on the earlier possession, not the final shot of the game, which obviously he tried to take over Rudy Gobert in the corner. And then Christian Braun, the dunk over Gobert, he was fantastic tonight. And then Jamal got hurt midway-ish through the third quarter. So the starters have been phenomenal all year long for this team. It's just they have no depth scoring on this team whatsoever right now. Okay, so to the article written on ESPN today, and this was pretty big news. Like, all the Nuggets outlets were talking about this because it was very interesting. So I'm obviously not going to go through the whole thing, but I did jot down things in this article that really stood out to me. And again, like I said, it was funny because a lot of the stuff I'm about to talk about kind of showed up in the game tonight. So the first thing that jumped off the page to me was a quote from Michael Porter Jr. He told Ramona Shelburne of ESPN, quote, "If we don't win it this year, we all know they might have to break it up." Wow. This team won a championship 18 months ago. I mean, think about that for a second. You've got one of your starting players telling ESPN if they don't win the championship this year, the team might break it up. 18 months after a title. I mean, that just, like, I kind of get what he's saying, and it kind of relates to what I'm talking about as far as this team needs more depth, plain and simple, and maybe having a top-heavy core 4 like the Nuggets have right now is just not the way to go in today's NBA with the collective bargaining renegotiated basically as the Nuggets dynasty window opened, which, it is what it is. I mean, it's super unfortunate for the Nuggets, like really, really bad timing, but it is what it is. You're going to have to adapt. So having 4 guys making the money like AG, Joker, Jamal, and MPJ are making, I think the Nuggets are going to find out that that's just not, with the new CBA, that's just not the way you can build NBA teams anymore, to at least to have like prolonged success. You can do it for a year or two, which is really what the Nuggets are trying to do right now by signing all 4 of those guys for the next couple of years. I mean, they locked up AG and Jamal over the summer instead of paying KCP and the year before bringing back Bruce Brown. But that quote from Michael Porter Jr. was pretty striking to me from a team that won a championship 18 months ago, saying that if we don't win the title this year, they might have to break it up. Him talking about the Nuggets front office, obviously. A couple of other things here. Calvin Booth said he understands the dilemma and doesn't hesitate to address the issues with how quickly Michael Malone has integrated younger players, a common but delicate dance for championship level teams. That's been a point of friction, I think, between Michael Malone and the front office. Okay. Calvin Booth wants to see Julian Strawther play more. Calvin Booth wants to see Zeke Naji play more. Calvin Booth drafted Christian Braun, and credit to Calvin Booth, he drafted CB, and he's been fantastic. And he is playing more, but he's earned that right. And Calvin Booth wants to see Peyton Watson play more too. But Malone isn't willing to do that. He's not willing to play these young guys and sacrifice potential wins. Like, I know Mike Malone. I've been around this team for 8.5 years in the locker room, in all of Malone's post-game, pre-game press conferences. He is an intense, competitive dude. Like, one of the most competitive people I've ever been around. I mean, he really is. Like, you remember the second after the Nuggets won the title, he's screaming into the microphone on, like, while they're getting the trophy, who wants another? Who wants another? Like, that's just who Michael Malone is. And I remember Stephen A. Smith said, that's usually reserved for the parade. Not with Coach Malone. He that's just who he is. He wants to win now. And that's, I think, where kind of the point of friction is coming from between he and the front office. The front office, and Calvin Booth talked about this last summer. He said, look, we're in this for the long haul. We want to win, kind of like have a Spurs type dynasty where you win 4 or 5 championships over a prolonged time frame, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is. Malone wants to win as many titles as possible, as quickly as possible. So that's something else that's going on with the team that is a little bit interesting right now. Another interesting note from this article written by ESPN today: league sources said the Nuggets inquired about Paul George this offseason, but talks never escalated because Denver refused to discuss Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, or Julian Strawther. And the Clippers weren't interested in solely taking back future salary, likely the $147 million owed to MPJ and Zeke Naji. Naji's the Nuggets' 5th highest paid player. He's played like 2 minutes this year, and he's their 5th highest paid player. That is bananas. He's getting essentially starter money and not even getting off the bench. But it also goes on to say Naji's the Nuggets' 5th highest paid player and perhaps the best example of the disconnect between Booth's strategy and Malone's on-court decision-making. So there's obviously frustration on the part of Calvin Booth that, he's like, hey, I paid this guy to help this team, and you're not playing him, coach. But in Michael Malone's defense, what has Zeke Naji shown the coaching staff to where he should be getting bench time minutes, 10 to 15, 20 minutes a game? I haven't seen much from him. And now, granted, last year he did have a decent start to the season, and then he gets hurt. He's out for like a month, and then he doesn't see the floor much after that. But, man, I get where the tension is between Malone and Booth, but, like, what's Michael Malone supposed to do? Just play these guys and hope that it works out, and while potentially losing a bunch of games when you have the best player in basketball on your team for who knows how much longer. Man, it's wild how quickly the good vibes from the championship year has kind of turned into like, man, what is this team? Let's see here. Last thing from the article that I thought was interesting is it says the Nuggets had an opportunity to get something back for KCP, league sources said, by agreeing to a sign and trade with the Mavericks, who offered Tim Hardaway Jr. or Josh Green, but Denver ultimately declined to do it, believing Christian Brown could fill the role. Now, they were right in that, because so far through 5 games, Christian Brown has filled that role brilliantly. But here's what I don't understand about that part of it. They could have done a sign and trade. KCP goes to Dallas, and the Nuggets either get back Tim Hardaway Jr. or Josh Green. Christian Brown could still be your starter if you acquire one of those 2 guys from Dallas. So that part was a little confusing to me as far as why they didn't agree to do the sign and trade. And then you lose them for nothing in free agency to the Orlando Magic. So, it's just, I really don't want to criticize Calvin Booth a whole lot, because he's done some things that I don't like, and he's done some things that I really do like. A couple of things he's done that I really like. Remember, it was not Tim Connolly that brought in Bruce Brown and KCP. That was Calvin Booth. And those two helped the Nuggets win a championship. So you got to give Calvin credit for that. He's the one that drafted Christian Brown, and he's looking like a home run pick. Julian Strawther, TBD, he also drafted him, and he drafted Peyton Watson. I had really high hopes for Peyton Watson. He showed me a lot of flashes over the last 2 years when playing and healthy. But man, when I was watching Peyton Watson tonight, Peyton Watson looks like a dude that is like trying to figure out what he is as an NBA player. Is he primarily a defensive player? Is he a shot blocker? Is he a transition offensive dunker type guy? He took a couple threes tonight. Like, I feel like he's trying to still just find his home as far as what his role and identity is going to be as an NBA basketball player. Like, he just looks lost right now. So, man, that one's a little surprising to me because the Peyton Watson I saw in flashes last year and the year prior was very encouraging. So far, through the first 5 games this year, he doesn't look right. Now, remember, he did miss all of training camp basically in the preseason with a hamstring injury. So I will give him a little bit of grace as far as waiting to see, maybe he just needs 15, 20 games to really get it going. But he doesn't look right at all. So you guys let me know what you think. I've got the chat up and open. Let's go through some of these. Let's see here. Okay. Daniel says P. Watt was expected to be released last season. I don't remember hearing any of that. I'm not sure where you got that one from, Daniel, but I never heard or saw anything like that. So I'm a little confused there. All right. Polymorph. CB is a great piece. P-SWAT looks like he would be another one, but doesn't look like he's made any progress. The opposite, if anything. Well, that's kind of what I'm saying, Polymorph. I agree. It looks like, it almost looks like he's regressing. And again, keep in mind, Peyton Watson did miss all of training camp and all of the preseason. So who knows? Maybe 10, 15 games in, he looks more like the Peyton Watson we saw over the last couple of years. But he does not look right at all. Let's see here. Good news travels east. Can anyone describe the finer offensive aspects of P. Watt's game, the improvements? Well, I mean, like I said, I haven't seen anything this year. As far as improvements to Peyton Watson's game goes, there's nothing I've seen through the first 5 games of the season that look improved. In fact, it looks sort of like regression. His 3-point shot looks awkward. It just doesn't look smooth, or fundamentals are off, or whatever it is. But yeah, that's one that we're like, that's the guy that you really needed to help the bench this year, just on both ends of the floor. So who knows? Maybe he can get it going and help the bench out. But I'm telling you what, everyone, if the bench continues to look like this, or only markedly improves, incrementally improves, the Nuggets front office is going to have some serious things to consider with changing up the dynamic of this Denver Nuggets basketball team, because it's just not working, at least right now. I mean, look at, like, I kind of equate it to the Avs last season. If you remember, right around the trade deadline, just before, the Avalanche traded Bowen Byram to the Buffalo Sabres for Casey Middlestat. And in Chris McFarland's press conference after the trade deadline, he talked about how it just wasn't working with the personnel that the Avs had on that team. Now, obviously, injuries and the whole Val situation killed him in the playoffs against the Stars last year. But that's almost kind of what it feels like right now with this Nuggets team. Like, it's not working. The starting unit is working. In fact, the starting unit is working fantastic. But again, and you can say, well, it's the starters are going to play most of the time in the playoffs, so who cares about the depth, blah, blah, blah. And I get that. But again, the bench needs to play well in the regular season in order for Nikola Jokic to not have to play 40 minutes every single night. In order for Aaron Gordon to not have to play 40 minutes every single night. I mean, look at Joker's numbers over the last 4 games. 41 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 53% shooting from the field. 40 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 66% shooting from the field. Against Brooklyn, 29 points, 18 rebounds, 16 assists, 56% shooting from the field. And then tonight, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 13 assists, 50% shooting from the field. 40 minutes in all of those games, or right around 40 minutes. That's what's frustrating to me about the bench unit not doing their part, because again, you don't want Coach Malone running the starters into the ground. Your bench has to be better. Russell Westbrook has to be better, more consistent. Dario Saric, you got to do something, bro. You got to do something. You can't just play 5 minutes tonight and go 0 of 3 from the field, 2 of which, by the way, were beyond the arc. 2 rebounds, no points. I mean, literally his only stat line tonight was 2 offensive rebounds. So, man, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how this shakes out through the rest of the year. All right, let's see here. Kevin says trade MPJ and give up a few draft picks for a starting player. Well, I mean, that might be something they consider, Kevin. I talked about if the bench doesn't improve, does the front office seriously consider trading one of the starting 5? And by starting 5, I really mean the core 4, because they're not going to trade Christian Braun, who's still cheap. They're not going to trade Joker. That leaves 3 guys. And of those 3, who's most likely to be traded? My guess would be Michael Porter Jr. But you're not going to trade him for another starter. What you want to do is trade him for a couple of like really good, solid depth pieces, in my opinion. It may be a draft pick, who knows? But that's what this team needs. They need 2 to 3 really solid depth pieces. And maybe you look at moving a guy like Peyton Watson. Or I don't think they're going to move off Julian Strawther. It's too early. And I like Julian Strawther. They're not going to trade AG. Polymorph says, I don't see them trading AG. Yeah, they're not trading Aaron Gordon. So really, that kind of boils it down to 2 guys in the starting unit. MPJ or Jamal. If they are going to do that. Those would probably be the 2 guys that they would consider trading to shore up the bench. Good News Travels Fast says Dario Saric is who he's always been. I've never been like a huge fan of Dario Saric, but he's been better than this in his career. In fact, Scott Hastings on our show with D-Mac and Tyler Columbus calls him Jokic light, or at least he called him that before the season. I actually texted Scott during the Brooklyn game, and I was like, so when are we going to see this Jokic light out of Dario Saric there, Scotty? Yeah, let's see here. Why is Zeke there? That's a good question. I don't know. Because like I said, if you missed it, Zeke Naji is the Nuggets' 5th highest paid player. Like, that is wild. He's barely playing for this team. Like, he can't even get into the bench unit, into the secondary rotation. He's your 5th highest paid player? Man. You just kind of got to chalk that one down to that was a big swing and the miss. It was. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see, everybody. But tough loss for the Nuggets tonight. It was a really, really fun game, exciting game. I mean, in that 4th quarter, the Nuggets went on a 25-3 run to make it 112-102. The problem is the Wolves ended the game on a 10-0 run of their own. So, yeah, couldn't close it out. And again, that kind of goes back to my theory on if the starters don't have to play huge minutes tonight, I don't think the Wolves go on a 10-0 run to end the game. I think they were just exhausted, even with 2 days off. Playing that many minutes, especially every single game, if Nikola Jokic had to play 42 minutes, I don't know, once every week or two, fine. But he's playing 40 minutes every game so far to start the year. Like that trend, and so are the rest of the starters, basically. This is not a sustainable formula at all. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll tell you this much. This is, over the last couple of years, like the Nuggets have been fun on the court and a little boring off the court, which is good because they're not making headlines for like the wrong reasons or anything like that. There hasn't been any drama on the team for the most part, hardly at all, really. I've been in that locker room the last 8 years. They have an amazing culture. Those dudes genuinely care about each other, but it's going to be interesting this year. The Nuggets are not going to be a boring kind of off the court sort of deal this year. There's going to be some fireworks going on. At least I think that. So at least from that point of view, it could be a fun season as far as like that aspect goes. Now on the court, I'm much more concerned about like the product being exciting in that vein. The starters are fine. Nikola Jokic is still the best player in the world, but he needs these guys. The starting unit needs more help, plain and simple. And that's sort of kind of the theme I think is going to be playing out at least through the first month or so of the season, maybe a couple of months of the season. So, yeah, we'll see. Let's see here. Let's get another comment here from Pete. Yes, MPJ for some bench play help, please. Jokic is being wasted. He looks so frustrated. Sad to see, especially how pumped he was to stay on bleeping parade. Yeah, man. Like that's the thing. That's what's I think so frustrating to a lot of fans, and rightfully so. You have the best basketball player in the world. Like, I get what Calvin Booth is saying, trying to have a sustained and prolonged dynasty and a chance for multiple titles. Nikola Jokic has maybe 5 years left in his prime. You got to go all in. You got to do everything you can. I don't care if the Nuggets are the worst team in the NBA for a decade after the Jokic era. If they go all in and win another title or two with Jokic, it would be worth it, in my opinion. It's something about Joker where, like, yes, I realize the Nuggets had never won a championship, and the fact that they got one with Joker is phenomenal. But it does have a weird sort of sense to me, at least. Like, if this team only wins one title with Joker, man, that'd be pretty disappointing, quite honestly. And I get it. It's hard to win championships in the NBA. And especially now with the new CBA rules that just unfortunately were horrible timing for this Nuggets team. But to only win one title with Joker would be really, really depressing because he's so good and so generational, and he really has changed the game of basketball. Like, having a center do what he does, nobody's ever done that before at the level he's doing it. So we'll see. The good news is it's still really, really early. And they still have the best player in the game. Sucked to see Jamal go out tonight with a concussion. I doubt he plays tomorrow night. I will be at the game tomorrow night, reporting live from the arena. We'll be doing the post-game show on here with DMAC. We'll try and get like Scotty to stop by, maybe Chris Dempsey or Vic as well. And I want to talk to them about this stuff we've been chatting about tonight. So we'll see, but tough loss for the Nuggets. Again, tonight they fall to the Timberwolves 119-116 is your final. They are now 2-3 on the season. They will face off against the Jazz coming up tomorrow night. That's going to do it for the post-game show tonight, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow night after the game.